The former Prime Minister Gordon Brown says the UK needs a constitutional revolution, otherwise he fears the Union could split apart. In a speech earlier, he also said he did not believe the SNP had made the case for another Scottish independence referendum. Well, I'm joined now by our political correspondent David Porter. David, how significant is this intervention by Gordon Brown?
Oh, I think it is fairly significant. Gordon Brown may be out of frontline politics for the best part of the last decade. And yes, he does make interventions from time to time, but he's not on our television screens on a weekly basis. So when he tends to say something, people listen and they prick up their ears. You've also got to remember he is a former Prime Minister and he was one of the architects of the devolution legislation, which led to the setting up of Holyrood in the late 1990s. So he is still a big figure in Scottish politics. And he's obviously been ruminating over things over the past months since the general election result. And essentially, he believes that there needs to be more devolution, not just in Scotland, but also throughout the whole of the United Kingdom as well, and giving more power to the regions. He says he would like to see a UK-wide constitutional convention, perhaps based on the Scottish model, to look at how things can be done differently. He says unless there are changes, he feared that independence could be coming Scotland's way. He says there cannot be cosmetic changes, that there need to be significant changes, and these changes can't just be tinkering around the edges.
Unless the United Kingdom now fundamentally changes, and I mean from top to bottom, recognising the importance of the regions and the nations, and giving respect to the regions, which that was what the vote was about, I think the United Kingdom could end.
And just as Gordon Brown makes those comments, though, there have been other calls, renewed calls here for a second independence referendum.
Yes, and they've come from people like the former SNP Minister Alex Neil, who says he believes if it is proved legal that Holyrood should hold its own consultative referendum on a second independence question. He says that he believes that if that was won and there was a yes vote, that would put tremendous pressure on the UK government to move towards the position that the Scottish government wants. He says he does not believe if there was a consultative referendum organised by Holyrood that the SNP and the Scottish government's opponents would boycott it.
OK, David at Westminster, thank you. The First Minister says she has profound concerns about the process set up by the UK government to allow EU nationals to hold on to their citizens' rights after Brexit. Almost 240,000 EU nationals live in Scotland. More than half of them have applied for settled status via a Home Office-run scheme, a lower proportion compared with the UK as a whole. With the deadline set for June next year, Nicola Sturgeon has announced an extra £17,000 of funding to support those who wish to remain in Scotland.
People, they look at what's happened over Windrush, they look at the hostile environment that the UK government created, they look at, some of the rhetoric around UK immigration policy, and it's understandable that they feel a concern about their future here. And while in Scotland immigration is not amongst our powers, I wish it was, and I hope it is in the future, it's incumbent on us to make abundantly clear that we want people to come here, we want people to stay here.
Staying with politics, and Michele Ballentine has announced her campaign to be the next leader of the Scottish Conservatives. The MSP admits she has a mountain to climb to defeat the favourite Jackson Carlow, but she insists she can garner support with an offer to stop obsessing about the Constitution and focus instead on the real needs of hard-working families. This from our political editor, Brian Taylor.
Michele Ballentine is a political newcomer, a former nurse and business founder who entered Holyrood in May 2017. Her supporters are keen but don't include MSPs. Only Ross Thompson has parliamentary experience. He withdrew as an MP after claims of sexual assault in a Commons bar, which he strenuously denies.
I do want lower taxes. It is what drives businesses to thrive.
As a start, she'd cut taxes on business and top earners to attract talent, arguing everyone would benefit from economic growth. She'd review spending, replacing universal free university tuition with an unspecified alternative. And she takes a gloomy view of the recent Scottish Tory offer, arguing it focused far too much on thwarting an independence referendum.
I've never been in favour of a constant no to India F2. I mean, I am absolutely a unionist, and I am absolutely against rerunning what I saw as a really divisive referendum. But we have to be a lot more than just that. And I think standing on that continuous platform as though there's nothing more to us didn't do us any good, and it certainly didn't pay off in the elections.
2021, we're going to win.
Michele Ballentine says the state should help those who are struggling. But this mother of 6 also says those who choose large families should take personal responsibility too.
If you're employed and you have 2 children and you want to have more, you have to decide whether you can afford that. You can't just go to your employer and say, I'm going to have another baby, you need to give me a pay rise. So the average family now is less than 2 children, and it's right that the state gives everybody the opportunity to be that average family and not be penalised if they don't have the income from elsewhere.
Of course, one can never tell with a democratic contest, but Michele Ballentine is not, at this stage, expected to win. But even if she doesn't, she achieves one clear objective, which is to present a challenge to the incumbent, to the interim leader, Jackson Carnell, and to make the Scottish Tories think very carefully about the way ahead. Brian Taylor, reporting Scotland, Edinburgh.